How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locker Talk Austin San Antonio Highs of the Week show. My name is Wac, joined alongside only Thomas going forward, sadly, as we talked about last week. Thomas, before we get into things, how you doing so far this week?
Doing well. Got to see some family over the holiday weekend, so definitely am kicking off my new work week on a better personal note.
Yeah, that was a nice little office on the Zoom call this morning. I was liking it. Is that like your dad's or grandparents' office?
Yeah, that's my dad's office. Yeah, he's a lot of cool things in that office. So yeah. That's what I was using.
You were rocking it well.
Thank you.
Of course, as we were talking about, Evan no longer with us on a weekly basis anymore. So sad way to start the show by introducing just us two, but we got to keep on going. And so let's do that with our highs of the week. Thomas, what is your high of the week?
Yeah, my high of the week is very similar to what I mentioned. Obviously, with how we've all been very isolating ourselves over the past month plus. Really have not seen a lot of people besides, when I'm out shopping for groceries and stuff like that. So it's nice to see my parents. I got to see one set of my grandparents and had some great discussions with them, just caught up and just had a really relaxing weekend with the fam.
Yeah, mine was kind of similar, not necessarily with the family. We decided to hang out with her. We went and had some Easter lunch with her parents because we live, right on my fiance's parents because we live right next to them. And then we just went and drove through Georgetown. She was like, I need to get out of the house. I'm going stir crazy. So we went just driving through kind of downtown Georgetown, looking at all the houses and buildings there. And it was a nice little drive. Those are some nice houses down there in Georgetown.
Yeah, that's definitely nice. I'm glad y'all were able to get out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think everyone's going a little stir crazy. And so hopefully only a couple more weeks. But, obviously always err on the side of caution. So, it needs to be done. And, even me as an introvert is starting to get a little stir crazy a little bit.
Yeah, it's something affected all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the lockdown is still in effect, but the sports world keeps on moving, if you will. We've got a couple of topics to discuss, and the first one I want to talk about, because I think it's kind of the biggest one out of all of them, is that the XFL suspended their operations yesterday, actually filed for bankruptcy today. So all employees were laid off. No plans for 2021 season so far. Some of these coaches and personnel still haven't been paid, or they still owe money, which is, I think, why they filed for bankruptcy. I have some thoughts on this, but I wanted to start off with you. If the coronavirus hadn't developed, how long do you think the league would have lasted?
Well, if what you're saying about the bankruptcy is true, I mean, I've been on the road. I've been working hard today, so I may miss that news. That really is interesting to say because, it seemed like going into that project that, Vince McMahon had, the necessary funds and obviously monetary, contributions, obviously allow that league to, sustain itself had that coronavirus not happened. I mean, the thing about this league was, like with, the AAF last year, it sounds like they've run out of monetary, support. It's unfortunate because, we've seen the last 2 years with both leagues and even previously with, obviously the USFL back in the 80s and, Arena Football League for like over 30 years and some other leagues, before and after that, that there is, significant number of quality, talented players out there that are not on NFL rosters currently. To me, it'd be awesome to have some type of, whether it's a spring league or some type of NFL minor league to give these players an opportunity to play professional football. I think, with everything we've seen the last years, especially, there's been some great people behind both projects and both leagues. But because of, the coronavirus, really halting the operation that was the new version of the XFL, then obviously with, the AAF last year not really having the full support that a lot of people thought they had. Really, the big thing is having, a huge boatload of money behind these projects. And I think, after the last 2 years, really what we need is an NFL minor league. And, whether it's in the spring or if it's at the same time as, traditional football season, it'd be great for the NFL to put together some type of minor league. I'm not, it doesn't need to be a 32-team league, but, maybe if you can get 8 to 16 teams, maybe you have a strong 6 teams that you can kind of, give these talented players a shot to not only play professional football, but also improve your chances, because a lot of these players don't have a lot of great opportunities. If they're on the practice squad of an NFL team, they may be in the CFL, they may try one of these spring leagues. I mean, to me, I think what we've learned the last 2 years is the NFL really needs a minor league. And, we've seen it, really be beneficial for the NBA, over the last 15 years. Obviously previously it was known as the NBA D League. Now it's known as the NBA G League with their partnership with Gatorade. I mean, these minor leagues or these kind of setup leagues allow, these team rosters at the highest level to have more depth. They, allows them to recover quickly. And obviously, the greatest minor league system is minor league baseball, and it's been around for over 100 years. So, I mean, there is, in my mind, a route where, you could see a professional minor league football league down the road that's somewhat linked to the NFL. But to me, I think, especially the last years, with these upstart leagues running out of money, it really needs to be directly linked with the NFL.
Well, I will say this on the XFL's behalf. They ran out of money most likely because of the coronavirus. I mean, when you look at it, yes, Vince was putting money into it, but, WWE is also, while they're still doing stuff, they're not in live venues anymore, so not generating revenue that way. They're not probably generating as much revenue through their merchandise as they probably would have been if there wasn't no coronavirus. So they're losing tons of money that way. So I can see why they ran out of money. So it's not really that they didn't have it. It's just because, not only is the XFL not making money, but the WWE is not making as much as it probably would have been at this point. So I think the XFL probably would have survived at least a few seasons, if not picked up. I mean, it seemed like the traction was there compared to the AFL or whatever it was. AFL, right? Is that so?
AAF.
AAF,
2 A's
yes.
and an F, yeah.
Yes, so sorry. So I think the traction was there compared to the AAF. I thought their ideas were more unique than the AAF. So I think it was there. And if you kind of look at it, it wasn't with the NFL, but it kind of made it out to be, a kind of minor league of the NFL. I mean, we've seen a few players already get signed on to NFL teams. And I do like the idea of an NFL kind of having a minor league. It's just, how do you work on that where you're going to have, how good is a player where if they play in the spring, will they play in the fall? And is that first year? How does that affect their health? I mean, and I know how violent a sport football can be, and that time off is necessary. If they're playing 10 games in the spring and then playing, full 16 games in the fall, what's that like on the body? So there is some stuff to work on there because compared to maybe like because with the G League, obviously it goes on the same time as football. And the whole idea of the XFL is to give you football when there isn't football. So would they move an NFL minor league to the fall? But you really don't want to do that because when would you do the games, right? You're not going to do it on a Saturday because, I mean, football is still king on Saturday with college. Do you do it on Friday? But, I mean, then you got in some states, I mean, Friday is football as well with, especially us here in Texas. That's I mean, football is king here in Texas. So we've got a lot of logistics to work through if the NFL wants to do a minor league. But I did like the XFL. I think it had some staying power. I think some people you got to give it a few years, right? Everything's going to be a little new and, it's not the NFL. It's not the NBA. It's not the whatever. You have to give it time to kind of build up on its own, give it a few years to kind of marinate, if you will.
No, I think you're bringing up some great points. And I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think you could have an NFL minor league in the spring. I mean, obviously there's a craving for it. I mean, it seems like every couple of years there's a new spring league that pops up. And, like we've seen this year, and like you mentioned a few minutes ago, there are players in the last couple of weeks that have already gotten NFL contracts for the 2020 season, assuming that there is one, because they performed so well. So, that would be a perfect bumper, obviously not only for, people that love football and want to see more football in, a non-traditional football season, but it also gives these executives, these GMs of these NFL teams an opportunity to say, hey, we're looking for a way to improve our rosters at the NFL level. Let's have, some, NFL related minor league squads. Let's see who shines. And then let's kind of battle out, not only are we battling out for free agency or free agents and, college players that are either graduating after 4 years or 3 years, leaving early, obviously, but you're also having a chance to, compete for those guys that shined in, like I said, a NFL type minor league system.
Do you think the fandom is there as far as, wanting to watch football almost year round? Do you think that fandom is there?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it seems like every couple of years there's a new spring league. To me, if you have some type of spring league heading forward, you have to have teams in Texas. Between the three teams that have played the last 2 years, between the AAF and then obviously the XFL, they've all had great turnouts. People in Texas, like you mentioned before, love football. And, this would, I think you have to find places that not only have the love for football like Texas does, but also put them in cities, put these teams in cities that may not necessarily have an NFL team. Because, you saw that a lot in the AAF last year, where they're, because they don't have an NFL team like San Antonio, they were averaging 30,000 fans a game. And so I think if you go those two routes, put them in some football-loving states, football-loving communities, but also put them in, some of these non-NFL cities that have been craving for an NFL team for years. If there is some type of a link to an NFL city, imagine, the Cowboys, as much as, San Antonio's won an NFL team, they've always been linked up, historically with the Cowboys, just in terms of fans. They've had, training camps there. That'd be awesome to have a Cowboys minor league football team in San Antonio. I think that'd be a great hit.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on the XFL, if you compare, and maybe I'll get your input on this as well. If you compare the two XFL seasons, the one way back when and the one this year, I think this year's was far and away superior, far and away more of a success. I just think it was the worst timing for them. Obviously, trying to build your first year, and then this coronavirus hits. So I think when you look back, if the XFL doesn't come back, and look back 5 years from now, this year, I'd say you have to look at it as an overall success, even though right now everyone got fired. Compared to when the first kind of, I guess you can call it first season of the XFL, which was just a complete joke, this one was far and away better.
No, and I totally agree. This was true football. There wasn't, those crazy antics that were going on in 2001 with the initial version of the XFL. And, you saw some really exciting play, especially with the Houston Roughnecks. So, I think compared to 2001, the XFL of 2020 was a vast improvement.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, as of right now, no more XFL, but don't think you can joke around with it compared to the first time. We're going to move on. We'll talk some more football in a minute, but I want to move on to baseball since it is kind of it's a sport that's going on right now, although I guess you could say the NFL is more relevant with the draft coming up. But with, baseball kind of still, quote unquote, potentially happening in the next month or so, depending on how the situation goes. There's a couple of ideas that, we've kind of, jotted up, and I want to get your take on them. We'll give you two different scenarios, and you tell me which one you would pick and why, okay?
Okay.
So we got play every game in Phoenix without fans. And so the games would be at spring training venues such as Diamondbacks, Chase Field, and other places. Or you kind of split them up into two regions. You got the Grapefruit and Cactus divisions. Instead of traditional American and National League, and then you play the games in Florida and Arizona. Which would you rather see and why?
I think it'd be really cool to break them up between Florida and Arizona. And partly, if you do that, it allows you some social distancing. If you do that, you don't have to have, thousands of players, or at least minimally hundreds of players, around the major leagues, be, contained in this very small part of Arizona. Obviously, there's ballparks there. We've talked about this, these not minor league ballparks, these spring training venues, like minor league ballparks, and obviously the major league ballparks have everything in store to host major league games. And I think, to me, and I know they have brought up that the Diamondbacks' home stadium, the major league stadium there in Phoenix, could be used, in either scenario, along with all the spring training venues. It's just obviously a great addition, another opportunity, another space that you can kind of separate the games being played. But I think it'd be kind of cool. We've talked about it on previous shows that, Major League Baseball, all they're doing in 2020 in terms of planning for it and potentially playing a 2020 season is experimentation. And this should be, to me, be really cool if you have, you break up the major leagues into the Grapefruit and the Cactus leagues like you do with, spring training divisions. And, you just play that little circuit, and then, you have playoffs at the end. And, I'm sure instead of the AL and the NL, like they're trying to replace potentially with this particular system, you'd have like a Grapefruit playoff, and then obviously the Cactus, and then obviously the champions of those two divisions or leagues, however you want to call it or classify it, would face off in the World Series. So I think it'd be cool to do it in Florida and Arizona. And obviously, I know at this point everyone's talking about, or not only talking about it, but emphasizing the social distancing. That would at least help with that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to what kind of guidelines of social distancing is going to be implemented once kind of the lockdowns are lifted. So once we kind of start getting back to some form of normalcy, like if you come in contact with someone who's sick, do you have to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks, just because you don't know if they had coronavirus or something? I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that the government is going to have to guide us on that is going to kind of impact what sports leagues decide to do, as far as, do we start the season now? Do we wait a couple of months? So do we play with fans? Do we play without fans? I think if you start baseball, it's obviously going to be no fans, but it's going to be, especially it'll be interesting to see if we get back to some form of normalcy and fall sports can be played. Will the start of that kind of season, will it be with fans or without fans? Which is something I think we can discuss on a future episode, as far as what do we think how that should look. But yeah, I think I agree with your sentiment. It gives kind of it doesn't give Arizona, I guess, all the teams, kind of breaks it up, so it does help with that social distance aspect. And then when it comes time for the World Series, you play it either, maybe you say whoever has the better record, you play it either at the Diamondback Stadium or maybe at at Florida. So a little incentive there as far as where the World Series can be had, and maybe by then there'll be some fans in attendance by then, and maybe they even say, okay, by then you say, hey, back to your own stadiums or something. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I like the idea of splitting it up between, in this kind of scenario, of splitting it up between Arizona and Florida. Any last words on that, Thomas?
No, I think we tackled that pretty well between
Perfect.
The two of us.
Moving back to the football, we got the NFL, which is kind of still business as usual for the most part. Now they are social distancing and whatnot. Today, I know you said you were traveling today. NFL kind of approved teams getting out virtual playbooks, especially for those, like the Cowboys and other teams that have new head coaches, to give them that extra time to prepare. So that's kind of been okayed. So now they're able to, kind of move ahead virtually at least. And the draft is still on schedule. They're doing it all online, all virtual. Kind of. I'm interested to see how that looks. And we can talk about that here in a minute. But first off, is it the right move, or should the league be pushing everything back?
I really hope that they're able to host a draft in April. Obviously, like it has been scheduled for a number of years now, because we're all craving, for some type of sports entertainment, some type of outlet away from all this, bad news and what's going on with the coronavirus. And the economy and all that. I mean, I really hope that they're able to find some type of way to host this virtual draft. I mean, like you said, I'm also curious to see how they're able to pull it off, how they're able to, obviously allow teams to, continue to evaluate these players going into the draft. And, I know there have been some key, opportunities to watch some of these college athletes that have been canceled because of the coronavirus over the last month. And so it'll be interesting to see how that not only affects these teams' evaluations, but also, like you said, how they're able to pull off, hopefully, a virtual NFL draft later on this month.
Yeah, I think they'll get the virtual part down. It's from my I haven't watched a lot of the NFL Network between the time of the virus and now, but it sounds like for most of the networks they've kind of had a good flow of things as far as doing their shows and whatnot. So I think if anyone can do it, the NFL Network can do it. Watching the ESPN Horse Challenge last night, there was some grainy, obviously, video quality with some of the players, and I don't know who are they providing their own cameras or the ESPN provide them, but whatever that is, that's something the NFL should work on. Is hey, whoever we're giving cameras to, one, they better be the best quality, and two, they better have good internet connection or something, because there was some grainy kind of quality from some players own homes. So hopefully and they'll probably be in an office or a basement or something, so that should help a little bit. But I'm interested to see how that's going to work. And like you mentioned, a lot of teams, obviously, some of these athletes, they're not getting, they're not being able to do their own workouts and whatnot. So it's hard to really scout someone. So this may be one of those drafts where you're picking what you've seen already instead of what, because sometimes you see all these players moving up the draft boards because of their own pro days and whatnot. I'm interested to see this draft. And if anything, the NFL still knows how to create a compelling story, because if you look at it, doing the draft the way they're doing it, it makes a compelling story, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And going back to what we've talked about before, it's trying to experiment to find a way to make the NFL season continue to go on as close to possible as in 2020. So. And I thought you brought up a great point about the whole internet connection. They're gonna have to find a way, especially in places like Green Bay, Wisconsin, to be able to make sure that they have the internet speeds and download speeds, everything they need to pull something like this off. Maybe Green Bay would have to go, or the Packers execs have to go over to Milwaukee or something to get what they need. I don't know, but that's definitely an interesting thing that could play a role in how these teams, draft, and if they're able to get their drafts in before their time is up for each pick.
Yeah, and I think that's something they'll work on it to ensure that obviously there's no issues as far as getting the pick in on time. I will say this, because I think if I've read it correctly, they're gonna have to do it in their own homes, and I think if you're gonna have the Jerry Joneses and whatever doing these picks, you might as well at least let one person into the venue. I don't want to see. I'm sure Jerry Jones's house is nice, but I'd rather see Jerry Jones in his war room at the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I would rather have them, and I'm assuming their internet connections are better there anyway. So I don't know why they wouldn't just say, "Hey, you can only have one person." I guess maybe there's probably the notion that maybe there's going to be people there that they can't really see on camera or whatever. There was the whole fiasco of, well, Jerry and Steven are related, so they can be together, can't they? That's not fair. And it's like, oh my gosh, a lot of drama, and I think the NFL loves it. I'm looking forward to see Roger Goodell set up, because apparently he's going to be doing it in his own home. So I'm interested to see what his setup looks like.
Yeah, I was not aware that he might be doing it from home. I thought, he'd do it at the NFL headquarters or something like that. That would definitely be really interesting to see him make all the picks there.
Hey, he has heard someone say, he's the first time he's going to be happy at a draft because he's not going to be able to hear any of the boos.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally, since we are a high school folk-centric focused company, we do want to talk about some high school stuff, and we wanted to make it a little fun this week and for future weeks. So one of the fun things we've kind of come up with this week is on a topic is, Thomas, I want to ask you this. What are some of the area's most unique high school mascots, and what's one of your favorites?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great mascots in Texas, and both Central Texas and South Texas have some of the best in the state. I mean, two of the ones that I talk about a lot, obviously the Hutto Hippos. Not many teams in general have that type of name. Battling Billy is obviously a very unique name out of Fredericksburg as well. When you go to San Antonio area, you got Central Catholic, the Buttons. So that's pretty cool.
The Buttons.
Yeah. And you got obviously, in Mason, both the Punchers and Cowgirls. And cannot forget about, the Schulenburg Shorthorns. Everyone's, there's a lot of, Longhorns out there, a lot of horns out there, a lot of bulls out there, not many Shorthorns out there. So those are some of the ones that obviously are really unique. There's a lot of other great ones. Obviously, when you go to Prairie Lee, their girls teams are the Arrows. Obviously, that's a link to their guys team, which are the Indians. You can obviously make that connection pretty easily. So obviously, you got a lot of, teams that are connected based on the boy and girl. They may not be exactly the same, but, you're not going to have a girls team be the Cowboys. So obviously some teams are the Cowgirls. And I know Sam Houston out of San Antonio, they're the Hurricanes. There's just a lot of really unique ones out there.
Yeah, I would have to agree with your Hutto Hippos. That's just really a unique one. And then my other unique one, the Lanier Vokes.
Oh, that's a great one. You're right.
Yeah, that's one of the most unique. And I remember because we played Pleasanton when I was going there. We played them, and I was like, wait, what? Really? That's a mascot? So definitely one of the most unique ones I've probably come across in my time is the Lanier Vokes for sure.
And staying in that same SAISD district, I mean, St. Antonio Memorial, not Veterans Memorial, but Memorial, they're the Minutemen. Obviously, you don't hear that a lot. That's kind of a very revolutionary type, name. So that's kind of a cool name as well.
No, I absolutely agree. I think we should.
We should not forget about the New Braunfels Unicorns too. One of the most unique names in probably all of sports, not just high school sports in Texas.
Well, my fiance would definitely love that team and root for it because she's all about unicorns.
Nice.
Well, we got some good ones coming up in future weeks, and maybe we should probably do going forward, maybe like a top 10 or something like that. So that'd be kind of cool to do. So we'll play around with that and let's get that. But hey, that's our show for this week. Thomas, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they do so?
Yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Tex Nation. You can also follow Vipe locally on Twitter, Vipe ATX, Vipe SATX. Obviously, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Vipe Texas. Obviously, go check out Vipe.com for daily sports coverage, not only locally, but across Texas and actually a couple other states. And go sign up for Vipe Campus as well to get some additional coverage for your school and school district.
And as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JoshWack13. More importantly, you can follow VipeU. That's Instagram is VipeU, and Twitter is VipeU_A. So we got some great content kind of coming out, kind of, I guess, unique content talking about their kind of experiences with the coronavirus and how that's affecting them, not only as students, but as athletes as well. So do check that out. But as always, this is Locker Talk, Austin San Antonio Highs of the Week show. That's Thomas. I'm Wac, and we'll see you next week.